Hello there, very good evening and welcome to Recount Watch. I'm your host, Eddie Lane, for this evening's program. I have with me my resident guest, Peter Ramsaroop, who has been on for the past week or so. And of course, I'm also joined by Priya Manickchand, a candidate of the People's Progressive Party Civic in the March 2nd, 2020 elections. The elections that we're still to conclude 2.5 months after. Peter, Priya, good evening and welcome to the program.
Hello, Eddie. Good evening. Hi, Peter.
Hello.
All right, Peter apparently didn't give the memo for the red tonight or something.
Yes, I missed it.
All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to get straight into the program. And we're going to quickly take a look at how today's proceedings went by. I'm trying to find here today's update with regards to tabulation for the 20th. I think I have it here. So today, 71 boxes were completed. I think we dropped a little from yesterday based on the numbers yesterday. But today we're seeing 71. This is based on figures from GCOM. I know the figures have to vary, maybe one or two boxes or so. And based on what GCOM is saying, that they have managed to tabulate 732 boxes for general elections and 756 for regional elections. Both Priya and Peter, you have been following the recount process. It's a painstaking process when you have to listen to the frivolous, unsubstantiated objections coming from the APNU AFC. But the fact of the matter is we're moving forward with the process. This would, we expect this to put to rest all the confusion or the manufactured confusion by the APNU AFC over the results of the elections. We all know the results. We know that the PPP won the elections by over 15,000 votes. The statements of poll that the PPP received from GCOM confirm that. And as we're looking at the statements of recount, that is also, those are also confirming those figures that the People's Progressive Party Civic would have released through its statement of poll. So I'm going to go with you first, Priya, your general overview of the recount so far and today's activities.
Great. Thanks again for the invitation, Eddie. I'm very glad to be able to sit with not only you and Peter, but with Guyanese people both here and in diaspora, because people are very anxious. Anxious because it is just not normal at all anywhere in the world, even in the worst places, for elections results to take 12 weeks and counting to be announced, for a winner of an election to be announced. But in addition to that, Guyana is faced with the pandemic that the rest of the world has determined already. It's still one of the worst that we've had in this century. And so we have people here who can't eat, who are very concerned about how they're going to pay the light bill and the rent and so on. So it's very disturbing, not only for electoral purposes, but very, very disturbing because of what it means to everyone, to people's life daily and to their families. And so it is important, and you would imagine that everybody wants to see, everybody who partook in the elections and participated as a political party would like to see an end to it because you want to see who won. So it's really quite bizarre that you have the AP and UAFC deliberately attempting to stall the process by making repeated objections with no basis. So they'd walk into a room, a box is opened, and they would make 70 objections to 70 persons based on nothing, no evidence. We heard from the horse's mouth itself. You heard yesterday one of their candidates speaking to the media on their behalf, Mr. Ganesh Mahipal, saying very clearly that it's hearsay. Somebody call somebody wife and tell him that the person wasn't on the list and blah blah blah. I mean, we're at a national stage. We have the world looking at us. We have people depending on us, and your basis for an objection is that somebody called somebody wife and you had to check it out. The objection by Kathy Hughes is, she opens her neighbor gate in the mornings every week to cut grass. I don't know who cuts grass every week. Just lies and a manufactured claim about why people who went and did their not only civic duty but exercise their franchise, why those people should be denied their will. Their will should be denied, and why their right to choose a government should be, because that's what's really happening here. I know everybody gets caught up in whether the PPP won and the PNC won and who's right and who's wrong, but really, when you go in there and object to 70 people, it's 70 Guyanese people you're saying, we're not going to give you a chance to pick your government. And that's what the APNU and AFC is saying. They didn't say, let us work really hard during the 5 years we were in office so that we could win those 70 votes, we can win those hearts, we can win those minds. No, their way of getting into office is going in there and denying people the opportunity to choose a government. And that for me is very, very worrying, and it's not something we can tolerate. And the good thing is, I'm seeing Guyana saying very clearly, young people, old people, particularly young people, we're not going to stand for this. We're not going to stand for it. So it's different time, very different time, a beautiful world to live in right now where it's not going to be tolerated.
Peter, your opening remarks with regards to the process.
Well, I agree with Priya on the slowness of the process and the frivolous objections that they're coming up with. I mean, we can actually predict now every day what to expect from the APNU scrutineers at the recount. They seem to have to meet before the night before. They know they have to object to X number of people at the station, and they call out serial numbers just out of their heads just to slow down the process. One station alone took 45 minutes today just to write up the stupidity of what they were saying. And GCOM is patient enough to write up the reports, but actually, as the APNU candidate said yesterday, it's makeup. And they're going in every day doing the same thing. So we understand that they're trying to delay the process. But as I've always said, regardless of how the process is delayed by them, and hopefully, as we will talk about later, that the more stations will be approved, there will not be a difference in the numbers. So what APNU have to understand, that the slot of the process, the slowing down of the counting of the boxes, the false observation and reporting that they're putting into the situation will not make a difference to the numbers. And at the end of it, the statement of polls will match the statement of recount, or the statement of recount will match the statement of polls, as we have seen so far in all the regions. Region 1 tabulation is on the dot. Region 2 tabulation is on the dot. Region 3 is about there. And it will demonstrate that the PP is already 30,000 to 40,000 ahead. And when you finish the 9 regions except for Region 4, the PPP will be over 50,000 ahead of APNU. And we know what the statement of polls show for Region 4. So what we got to understand, slowing down Region 4 will not make a difference. The numbers wouldn't change. The numbers in the box is solid, that matches the statement of polls, will match the statements of recount. So, we want this process to be completed. The Guyanese population, and as our president-elect said today, Dr. Irfan Ali, he has a plan of inclusive governance. He's talking about, his development and economic plan, how he would strengthen institutions. And these are all approaches as he is ready to take leadership of our country. So the quicker we get there, the quicker we can get back to our lives, the quicker people can start putting their businesses back together, the quicker people will have jobs to look forward to, and the quicker that the will of the people will be declared after this process is completed.
Great.
Thanks,
So
Peter.
I wanted to quickly just repeat what Peter said. The every 99% of the statements of recount are matching the statements of poll. Where they do not match, so it's not as though where you don't match is where some presiding officer was unsure about whether a vote should go to a particular party, and they put it in the rejected bundle. And GCOM is saying, no, we're good with that. We don't care that it was written inside the cup. We'll give the PPP the vote because the intent of the voter was clear. So you have like 1 or 2 off in a box here or there, 3, 4 kind of thing. Let's look at Region 2. Region 2 was declared this afternoon. General elections. APNU scored 7,345 in the on the night of election, this time they scored 7,340. They actually lost 4 votes. The People's Progressive Party had 18,781, I believe, or 89. And now at the statement to recount, it's 18,785. The point I'm making, it's very, very, very close. The recount is showing us what we always knew. The recount is showing us what the statements that came out of the places of poll on election night showed. Same numbers. Nothing is turning up differently. And I am saying with every confidence that the same thing will happen for the Region 4 recount. Once it is completed, we'll see that the numbers that were released on the statements of poll that were placed outside each polling place, that were given to political parties, that are published by the PPP, that have been published by other political parties, the statement of recount in Region 4 will match the statement of polls.
And Eddie, I mean, if I can add to that, the variation in terms of the difference, how much the PP won the election in Region 2, for example, is significant. And, the night of, or the next day after the 2nd of March, APNU knew those results too. They never argued the fact that they didn't lose that much. They lost a significant number of votes in Region 2. The PP won a significant amount more than the 18,000 to 7,000. And so as Priya said, as we move on to the other regions, nothing will change. And, for Mr. Granger to continue to mess with the system and allow the slowness of his scrutineers to object to frivolous activities, again, I tell Mr. Granger, it will not change the votes. He has lost an election. The quicker he allows himself to concede is the best he can do for a country. And his people out there that are stopping this process need to stop the crap that they're doing. It will not change the numbers.
And to Mr. Granger, I would say this to Mr. Granger. At the end of this, nobody's going to remember Ganesh Mahipal. Who is he? Nobody's going to remember what David Patterson said. Nobody's going to remember what Kemraj did. What they will remember is that President Granger, who could have stopped all of this, who could have stopped the suffering of his people, did not. And so if he continues this, it's going to be his legacy, that he tried to rig an election. And I'm telling you, Eddie, the world, the universe is simply not going to let it happen. And the PPP is not going to let it happen. So he's not going to be successful. Nobody who's trying to rig this election is going to be successful in doing that. So at some point, and I believe sooner rather than later, we are going to see the real results of the election, which we already know. The nation knows that. The PNC, the APNU, the AFC, Mr. Granger, knew these results on the night of the election. Mr. Granger's son-in-law has pretty much said he knows the results. He says he doesn't believe Mr. Mingo's numbers. So Priya Singh from the PNC, very senior executive member, perhaps even, of that party, has come out very clearly and said, I do not believe these numbers. They're not accurate. And if you pursue the path of adopting these numbers, you're going to sink this country into a dictatorship, and I'm not prepared to see that happen. The Justice for All party, who's a part of the coalition, one of the members of the coalition, has said very clearly they don't believe the numbers. The WPA has said they don't believe the numbers. So Mr. Granger is going to be left. Right now, he's standing alone. The APNU, AFC, they're standing alone. There's no political party in this country. There's no person in the country. There's no international friend or ally. There's no Caribbean minister or prime minister who's supporting them. Everybody has said the numbers from the Region 4 count are incredible and they cannot be trusted. And anyone who forms a government based on those numbers will not be treated as legitimate. I don't know if he wants to hear more than that. What more than that you want to hear?
Priya, Peter, and I started by saying that we're making some progress in terms of the recount to the increase in boxes and so forth. But what I understand based on the feedback I'm getting from the agents at the conference center is that the frivolous, baseless objections, the lies that are emanating from not only the agents, but people who were once ministers in the APNU, AFC, the former ministers themselves, very senior leaders in the coalition, coming out and blatantly lying to the media, lying to the public about what has been happening. You had claims of, like for Region 1, for example, they objected to a name of one of their own supporters, saying that the person was out of the country. The guy was captured on camera dancing on the stage at their event.
Yeah.
We have a number of people who they objected to. They objected, I understand, I wasn't able to verify, but I think one person objected to the polling station where Mr. Granger voted, and I think his serial number was objected to. I haven't been able to confirm that. You have cases where people are being objected to, and the people surface to say, hey, I voted. I've never left Guyana. I am not there. What I want, the most recent case, Priya and Peter, is the couple in Berbice. I think Nicholson is their surname. I want to share the video. These are
Please.
people who they said were out of the country. I want to share the video of the Nicholsons in Berbice. Let me just start the video, and I'm going to put this in full screen so that the public can hear the testimony from the gentleman who they claim wasn't in the country to vote. Well, my name is Mark. Yesterday, he was telling me that he did have a vote. How we vote, then voting time, and the voting for so go on the station, sit up school. And he vote. Normally, police contact vote. The government, maybe people, the first people, fight. So the and then the black young and she asked me like, where was the thing? The young thing fight, second people, and the second people. And I told the man, going back and I don't want to go, and I told myself to go. Me on the way for the right? On the right, and the rest of the people and people work on the rest, right? So what we done from the come up, from the gallery. For the navigation, how do you feel? I like to run because I was in there at the time, right? And when I get the message yesterday, I just let shock because I know when I'm coming to tell you the 29 July. Came out here, the 29th of August. And the 2nd March, we will be here till 6 o'clock. I'm trying to pick you up from there and over the friend primary school. Right? And having also long go in the right hand. All right. So what I did, I'm not going to go through the full video of the lady because I think she's repeating exactly what her husband said. This is just one couple that they claim were out of the country. And I know, Priya, you would want to talk about the lies, the misinformation, and what I would want to describe as the garbage that came out of the mouth of Ganesh Mahipal yesterday. But what he did in all of that, he made a very significant revelation, which I'll leave to you and Peter to talk about.
Right. So here's this couple, Peter, and Eddie saying The lady is saying, look, we got up at 6 o'clock in the morning. We catch a car outside here. We went to the place. When we went there, we were the only two people in this polling station on the eastern side. But on the next side, they had a whole line lined up. And the man is saying, every polling day, I'm the first man that's be there to vote. Imagine these people have to come, these two senior people have to come in this country and defend they exist. The APNU have disappeared. What is this? They have to come and say, and yes, we were in the country, and yes, we voted. And if it weren't so sad, if this weren't so sad, it would be extremely funny. But it's actually very sad, in my view, that in 2020, in this attempt to rig an election, that we're putting our citizens through this. And that's what I want Mr. Granger to understand. I don't have, and I hope he understands, if he listens to these things, that my reliance on him understanding really means I hold him in higher esteem. I have no hopes that some of his ministers would do what's right, simply because I don't think they have a conscience, and I don't think they have ethics, and I don't think they're so Mr. Granger, I hold in a little bit higher esteem, and I'm saying to him, this is what you're doing to your citizens. You put these two old people, the lady said she was in her garden yesterday when somebody called her and tell her somebody must have voted for her and so on. How can you do this to your citizens? How could you be they have a whole video, Ramsaroop Narayan did a whole video on the East Bank with about a collection, about 8 or 9 persons saying very clearly, I exist, I live, I'm alive and well. Look at that, hey, look my ID card there, hey, I voted on election morning. How could we be doing this to our citizens? And that's what I'm saying. In the fight to see which political party won, I hope they understand that what who they're hurting here are actually human beings, people who they want to go and serve, who will mark them up for this, and they're going to judge them very harshly for this.
Peter, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I got to disagree with my colleague just for a second. I do not hold Mr. Granger in high esteem. I believe he's a dishonest man. He decided that he don't want the Carter Center back into Guyana. He decided to refuse their entry. He said he doesn't get involved with GCOM decisions. GCOM made a decision to let the observer groups back in. Mr. Granger knows on March the 3rd, as Priya said earlier, the night of election, that they lost the election in 2015. They knew they won the election the night or the next day of May 12th. So for Mr. Granger to sit and act like a president, as a caretaker president, I believe he has become now the undertaker president, not the caretaker president. He's an undertaker because he is burying our economy, he's burying our electoral process, he's burying the will of our people. So I have to disagree respectfully with Priya on esteem for Mr. Granger. And you know, when you look at the citizens, and I hope that Mr. Felix, the former Minister of Immigration or whatever he was, is not going back to data. You know, when you leave the country, you don't know whether you're migrating permanently or you're just going on a visitor's visa. So if they're looking up records of a citizen that left to the United States a year ago, and they're picking those numbers out to throw those frivolous numbers in the observation reports, that's what they seem to be doing. So they may be using state resources to utilize to delay the system. And what Mr. Granger got to realize, again, I repeated many, many times, no matter what he does, he lost the election because, 1, he failed Guyana. 2, he disobeyed the Constitution after the no confidence vote. 3, he fired 30,000, 40,000 sugar workers, or 7,000 sugar workers, and 30,000 people out of work. He spent our money out of our federal reserves. He spent our money out of our public deposit account. He paid extra money for all frivolous activities. He ruined a lot of our industries. That is why Mr. Granger today will never be elected as president of Guyana ever again in 2020. I don't believe he'll be able to run in 2025. If he survives and he wants to run, good for him. But what his people know and what the Guyanese know, he has lost an election because of his failure, his inconsistencies, his incompetence. And as the undertaker president, he got to stop burying our economy and stop burying our democracy.
Yeah.
But
So let me just be very clear.
before you go,
I
Priya,
think
I
he's
wanted
doing.
to. Before you go, Priya, I wanted to bring you back because I heard Peter saying that we are using immigration records. What I understand from Ganesh Mahipal yesterday, he made it clear. He was very, very clear that they went to homes and they talked to relatives and neighbors and friends who said that the people were out of the country. He was pressed by the media and he eventually confessed that they are working with hearsay evidence. They have absolutely no concrete evidence to present that people were out of the country, and they're plucking serial numbers willy nilly. They just pluck serial numbers for every box and they go with them. You have cases where they block 50 serial numbers and they go, and just two of those names were ticked. So while you may be saying that, because we have the mixed messages too, and I think that is what is getting everybody confused. One person says one thing, and the other person says something else, and every time they hit the podium, they say something foolish, including Walter Lawrence, who claimed that the PUP was responsible for the murder of 500,000 people in Region 4, when Region 4 just have just over 200,000 people. I don't know where exactly she got those figures from, but I guess it's desperation. Priya, go ahead.
Right. So I want to be very clear. I don't believe, and I believe he's losing it very quickly, but I think David Granger, and I believe Sandra Granger too, and I'm naming her here because she came on the scene as our first lady and invited us to pay attention to what she was doing and used our funds in the office of the first lady to advance work. And I believe she did some good work while she was there. But the Grangers can stop this. They can stop this madness. The Harmons and the Valdas and so on who are running around there claiming they won an election, and everybody, including them, know very well they did not win the election. Mr. Granger could end this right now. He could put an end to it. He can stop it. And I believe it is up to him to do it, because the people he has under him, they're not going to do it. They will take power at any cost. And we've seen that. So I think it's important for us for me to appeal to whatever he has going on still in his head. I believe he knows fully well, like Peter said, that he lost the election. I think he knows that. It would be odd if he did not know that. Like I said earlier, in 2015, 4 days after the election, they were insisting that GCOM name the winner, because they said it was taking too long. We're now 12 weeks after an election. So he knows. And the way he knows, Eddie, is every single polling place had an APNU agent on the day and night of the election. And when they left those polling places, just like the PPP agents, they took to Congress Place or the satellite PNC offices and AFC offices across the country, those polling statements, the statements of poll, and gave it to them. And when they added it up, that is why
the fact that everyone said this was a matter of all elections. Every single scrutineer for every single party was on their toes, their eyes, Harman used the term eagle eyes, but everybody was there watching every other person, watching GCOM. And to have hundreds of dead people get out of the cemetery and walk to the polling station and voted is so ridiculous. I mean, it's so embarrassing that to hear these so-called senior people get up and say that people voted. Amna Ali said they got up, they voted, and they went back into the grave. She can prove that. She said, I mean, this is the journey.
It worked. She said that with a mic and cameras in front of her. So I'm saying that it sounds really funny, but while we are laughing, a nation waits. While we're laughing, people can't put food on their tables. While we're laughing, the business community is asking for their businesses to get some kind of relief. So it sounds extremely funny. When you ask Valda Lawrence, well, how did you win the election? She says, pim, pim, bam, bam. This is a senior minister of this country, was a senior minister and aspires to ministerial office again. And her response is pim, pim, bam, bam. And that Jack Day killed 500 people in Georgetown. Georgetown has
500,000
265,000
people.
electors. 500,000 people. GT has 265,000 electors. How on earth could we have killed 500,000 people? But the point I'm
And still
making is
have people to
they
vote.
say these ridiculous things, and they have no, they have absolutely no interest in even trying to prove any of it. That is how it is just speaking for the sake of speaking. And that's what's happening in the Center for Recount. In every polling, in every recount station, they have APNU agents who have been sent in there with instructions to delay the process for as long as possible. And some of them are extremely surprising. Like I say to the young people in the AP and UAFC who are in there doing that, that you have a future. This country, you can offer something to this country. Being in opposition is not the end of the world. There is so much that Guyana can benefit from all of us, that to go in there and make yourself a fool and to be exposed as if we're not going to forget that. Nobody is going to see Ganesh Mahipal and see the potential in him. We're now going to imagine that he, like he said, he listens to hearsay and he delays processes and he stymies development. That's what will define him. And anyone else who goes in there and does that, that's what's going to happen. So uh, in one of the stations you had the young Daniel Siram, I believe it was, who came out and said that there was a secret meeting in this public place with 20 strangers. Uh, that's what I'll remember him for. I mean, these people need to take some their own pride, their own self-respect, and rein it in and not allow the fossils who are on their way out. Half of the people who are making them do these things, they have no future in this country simply because of they've expended their usefulness and they're old, aged. So I'd urge the young people in the APNU to have some self-respect and to put an end to this. Stop um, doing this. It's all recorded. This is recorded. So you might feel anonymous because the building is closed and not many people can go in there because of COVID and so on. But to stop doing it because it's all recorded. And that's
They're
how they would
choosing,
be.
even though they're choosing to go public, that's the problem. Because when you look at the objections and the statements coming out of some of them in the AP and UAFC, apart from desperation, I think I don't know if some of them are senile or something of that sort. When you listen to David Patterson, couldn't give an explanation as to why they haven't released their SOPs. When you listen to Leonard Craig making a fool of himself, you listen to Walter Lawrence, you listen to Amna Ali, you listen to Ganesh Mahipal. When you listen to them, I don't know if it's desperation. They know they lost the elections and they just feel that their supporters are that gullible that they can come out and they can say anything and that these people are going to buy in to that.
Yeah.
They speak about everything else, save and except. They talk about how much evidence they have for dead people voting and all sorts of things, but they're not speaking about the evidence that is before them. That is the rigging by Mr. Mingo. I will share some photos of some graphs, rather tables, which show the rigging by Mr. Mingo. But before we go to that, I know both of you wanted to come in to say something, so I'm going to give you a chance. Peter.
Yeah, so just to summarize back, on March 2nd, we had a very credible, transparent, accountable, clean and fair electoral process. Every citizen that wanted to vote got a chance to vote. Our ID cards were checked, our fingers were checked, the folio pictures, everything went smooth. The observer groups across the world that came to Guyana validated that it was a great election. GCOM chairperson and the commission validated it was a fair and free election. The president at the time, the caretaker president, Mr. David Granger, the regular Granger that he's become, said it was a very fair, clean election. We all saw the other 9 regions did the count. They all validated votes. APNU people signed off on all of the 9 declarations. So everything up to that point was fair, clear, clean, and accountable. We got to Region 4, and about 300 plus statement of polls were counted, all were accurate, and then Mr. Mingo created the electoral fraud. Electoral fraud is a criminal situation. As a lawyer, Priya can explain a lot more than that. I believe he ought to be arrested. He ought to be investigated and sent to the courts, and if found guilty, which he is, because we've now proven over 50 to 60 boxes that you will demonstrate in a few minutes, that Mr. Mingo is involved in electoral fraud. And all the observer groups basically said, stop it. Let's continue. Let's look at the statement of polls. All the statement of polls that GCOM released at the polling stations, the media now, for example, Kaito News, went and got their own copies. They now have validated, published reports daily now, showing the difference between what they got at the polling station that night of the 2nd of March and what Mr. Mingo has described that he said his numbers are. So the world now sees enough evidence. So as we get now to the next step of the final recount in Region 4, there's nothing they can do to stop the fact that the evidence is out there, electoral fraud. And what we need to let everyone else know, the people that are beneficiaries of electoral fraud, those that are benefited from contracts, those, ministers that are being paid that shouldn't be being paid right now in a caretaker mode, all of those will be looked at. And we've got to stop the madness, because ultimately, as Priya said earlier, is our citizens that are suffering. And that's what, was so impressive when I listened to Dr. Irfan Ali today, describe his first 100-day plan. It describes how he plans to rebuild our economy. It describes how he plans to have inclusive governance. It describes how he plans to get out of this madness that we're in and bring the citizens back, the stakeholders of our country, as part of the discussion, as part of the solution. He is very outcome-oriented, result individual. And I believe as we move to the next step, get the recount done, get Mr. Mingo and those intellectual authors arrested and tried for electoral fraud, I believe we're going to have a great future as Guyanese, and our people are looking forward to the leadership of Dr. Ali and his economic and development plan that will bring about the desired change that we need in our country. And he said we're going to strengthen institutions. We're going to strengthen Parliament, the parliamentary committees. He talked about inclusive governance with the stakeholders in civil society, other political parties. And when you put a plan like that in place, it's something for us to look forward to. What Mr. Granger has done as the undertaker president, and the longer he stays in power, he's trying to dig that 6 feet deeper and deeper for himself. His legacy is finished. He will not be able to ever recover. When we write the history books 10 years from now, 5 years from now, Mr. Granger will go down as the undertaker president that defied our constitution with the no confidence vote and held our nation hostage and, buried democracy so that he can try to swear himself in as the next president, which is no way, no path, as this account is finished, that Mr. Granger will ever be president of Guyana again.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point to Teddy that Mr. Mingo did this. Nobody has any doubts about that. Mingo is on videos and camera and so on saying, I used the statements of poll to come up with these numbers. We now know, and it's being uncovered every single day, that he did not, because the numbers on the statements of poll, which came out of the polling places election night, are corresponding with the numbers during this recount process. The only thing off is Mr. Mingo's numbers, which he inflated. He gave the APNU votes that the people of Guyana did not give them, and he took away from the People's Progressive Party votes that the people of Guyana gave them. But I want to point out that Mr. Mingo did not wake up one morning and say, Claremont Mingo, you're going to go and rig this election here for fun. You're going to do this because you feel like doing it this morning, or Satan catch you, or somebody, some jumbie hold you. That's not why he did it. He got up and did this pursuant to instructions from the APNU, AFC, and on their behalf. And if this recount did not happen, they would be benefiting from that fraud. That's not going to happen. And so we want the people of Ghana to know that I don't think it's time for any of us to get complacent. We have to be very, very careful, because clearly there's still a defense of these, there's still a claim by the AP and UAFC that their statements of poll match Mr. Mingo's numbers. But you're going to show us right now that they do not. So I want to point out that until this is over, we have to be extremely vigilant, because Mingo did this on behalf of the AP and UAFC, and they still would benefit if they can, because they're essentially crooks.
All right, thanks, Priya. So I'm going to go quickly to a few of the statements of poll that came out. And this is on the 17th of May. The Diamond East, and I shared some of this last night, where the statement of poll says that APNU got 99 votes. The statement of recount confirmed the 99, but Mingo declared 149, which gives APNU 50 more votes. The same ballot box, the PPPC got 119 based on the poll, the statement of poll. The statement of recount confirms that, but Mr. Mingo took 10 of the PPP votes and declared 109. And that's just one box. I wanted to get some others that I received today that I will share with you in just a bit. But it goes to show that, Mr. Mingo, nothing that Mr. Mingo declared were really what were in the boxes. So I'm going to go to the 90th, which those that were taken from yesterday, yesterday's count. So let's look at Golden Grove, ballot box 4145. APNU 180 based on the statement of poll. Statement of recount confirms the 180, but Mr. Mingo declared 270. That is 90 more than what they actually got. The PVP got 102 based on the statement of poll, and it maintained across the board. It was confirmed in the recount, and it was confirmed, Mr. Mingo used the same figures. Let's go to Golden Grove again at 4146. APNU, based on the statement of poll, 171. Statement of recount confirmed 171, but Mr. Mingo declared 241. That's 70 more votes than they actually got. Another Golden Grove box, 4148. APNU 151 based on the statement of poll. The statement of recount gave them 150, maybe a spoiled ballot or something of that sort. Mr. Mingo declared 181, gave them 31 more votes. I'll do probably two more quickly. Golden Grove again. APNU 165 based on statement of poll. Statement of recount 165. Mingo declared 225, 60 more than they actually got. Golden Grove 4156 is the box. APNU based on the statement of poll 154. Statement of recount 154. Mr. Mingo declared 174, 20 more than they actually got. Let me do this one. This is an interesting one as well. 4157, still Golden Grove. APNU 103, based on the statement of poll. Statement of recount 102. Mr. Mingo declared 193. That's 91 more votes than they actually got. So, and those are just a few of the boxes, which will demonstrate the level of padding that Mr. Mingo did with regards to the votes of the APNU AFC, votes that they didn't get. If we go back to Monday, the tabulation for Monday, Priya, let me just share this one more. This is a general table with the tabulation for as of Monday. And if you can look at the bottom here, just about 50 boxes, of which maybe 30 or so, he padded the numbers, 2,827 votes he gave to to the APNU AFC, votes that it didn't get. And this is evidence that is presented there. You can take the statement of poll and the statement of recount and you can compare them and you will see the level of fraud. But Apple seems not to want to talk about this.
Yeah, they're not saying anything about it at all. Mr. Mingo is a brave fellow, though, I have to say. I mean, I would call on public servants across this country not to put yourself in his position because you're enjoying going with he and no selling sit down, I can tell you that. And nor will Valda, nor will anybody else, unless they themselves are charged and find themselves guilty. And I do believe, while it sounds funny, he has to be a very brave fellow. And I call on police officers and PCOM staff and so on not to put yourself in that position because at this point, look, there are different points in the world and in the country's history where um, they're defining moments for human beings, individuals. And at this stage, people are going to have to decide which side. There's no gray area here. It's black and white. Are you with rigging? Are you for rigging? Are you for installing a government that the people didn't want? Or are you against that? It is that clear. It is that clear. And so anyone who is being used in their professional capacity, for example, police officers who will be used or are being used by the government, the caretaker government ministers, to go and break up gatherings or protests or to shut down voices that are in opposition to the APNU AFC, watch yourself. I say watch yourself because individuals will have to decide where they want to stand. And I'm saying to them, in the same way the APNU AFC is going to throw Mr. Mingo under the bus, in the same way they're throwing those 2,339 polling agents under the bus and saying that they're corrupt and wicked and dunce or incapable because they allowed all this fraud to happen in the polling places. They're saying that openly. That's how, and so people are going to have to decide in this period which side they stand on. Do you stand on the side of freely elected governments, or do you stand on the side of dictatorship? It is that clear to me.
Before we go, Peter, I heard Priya touched on Mr. Mingo and what he did. And I think Honorable Bruce Golding, the former Prime Minister of Jamaica, put this really into context. And this is what he said. And I'm quoting him directly. It takes an extraordinarily courageous mind to produce fictitious numbers when such a sturdy paper trail exists. And he's talking about what Mr. Mingo did. You know, you have all the statements of poll, you have all the cameras there, you have everything there. And so maybe Mr. Mingo has an extraordinarily courageous mind to do what he did.
Mingo probably there's somewhere in a Barry celebrating that. See, Bruce Golding said I'm extraordinarily courageous. He shouldn't take comfort in that. Mr. Golding said very clearly that he's never seen such a transparent attempt to rig an election. Bright daytime, cameras
effort to alter the results of an election.
Alter the results of an election. And you know, Eddie, the thing is so unbelievable. You could wake up marveling that this really happened. Video cameras rolling, Facebook Live rolling, everybody's phone on. All the ambassadors and high commissioners in the country representing various countries across the world in the room, all the international observers in the room, and Mr. Mingo, pursuant to the instructions of the APNU AFC and on their behalf, stood up and did this rig in front of the world. It is unbelievable, really, and it has to be stopped. It has to be shut down.
One of the good things Mr. Mingo did was he implicated his co-partner by having Valda Lawrence sign the declaration. So he made sure he showed who else was involved in that declaration. So Valda Lawrence should be very, very worried that Mr. Mingo already probably turning state evidence to say is, you know, who was part of that rigging process, because as all the other 9 declarations, not a single political party ever signs the declaration. But Mr. Mingo asked Valda Lawrence to sign it to show that she was implicated as part of that rigging process. But electoral fraud is a serious crime. And as Priya said, other GCOM people out there that may be working the stations, they need to realize that this will not end well. As the Prime Minister Rowley said of Trinidad, it will not end well. You've got to come clean. Democracy is something that you don't mess with around the world anymore. The world has changed. And our people, the will of the people, got to be exercised, and the outcome results of fraud, electoral fraud, will be a significant crime that will be dealt with very harshly. So for those that got any chance again to make sure they're not part of it, as Priya said, the police force, where is the Commissioner of Police? Where is suddenly Leslie James? Why did he not arrest Mingo? Why is he not starting an investigation? You know, if any complaints from a company goes in that the accountant stole money from a company and is fraud of writing bad checks, that person is arrested immediately and brought before the courts. They're going to have to hire lawyers like Priya to defend them. But the fact is, Mingo has not been arrested. Why is Mr. Granger sitting on this evidence? What more evidence? Mr. Granger said, I have no evidence. Why would we get sanctions? You know, he's in the world of his on his own. And that is where the madness got to stop. And our people need to exercise their right to stand up for democracy. And I tell people, fighting for democracy is not an easy task. We cannot allow dictatorship to ever get back into Guyana. For those of us that were part of it in the 1980s and 70s, we cannot allow dictatorship. What we saw, and Comrade Priya was there on last Saturday when we exercised our rights to stand up and protest and follow all the COVID-19. What we saw is brutality by the police force trying to tell us what to do. They were sent to arrest some of us. That is not what we need in Guyana. We don't need a police state. We need a state where we have a right to speak out, we have a right to protest, we have the right to fight for democracy. And Mr. Granger needs to realize, again, we will not allow him to be a dictator of Guyana, and he needs to move on and get out of office as soon as possible.
All right, quickly, I know we are slipping out of time, but having looked at what is happening, both Priya and Peter, we are way behind in terms of our numbers. And there is no way we can achieve the objective of completing all the boxes by within the 25 days. It therefore means something has to be done. The People's Progressive Party Civic, a delegation from the party today met with GCOM to discuss issues surrounding the recount. And a number of recommendations were made. Note recommendations, because we have to recognize that GCOM is an independent body and no political party, especially the PUB, would want to go and dictate to GCOM how to do their work. But as a stakeholder, I think the party has a right to make suggestions to ensure that the process that we're undertaking is completed in expeditiously and also in a very transparent manner. A number of recommendations were made, Priya. I'll give you a chance to go after them first.
Yeah, so Eddie, what we want on behalf, you said the PPP has a right. I think the PPP has a duty, which is far bigger than a right, a duty to do all it can and advance every position it can to make sure this process ends as quickly as possible as a human rights issue. This is, I mean, we have human beings in Guyana who are suffering because of COVID and because of the country's inability to attract financing from various IFIs, international financial institutions, and the inability of this present incumbent government who have foisted themselves on us to address the needs of families in this country. And so we have to end this process. And in any event, any party who says they won the election must want to see a quick end to this. It is bizarre to me that the PNC, AP, and UAFC is trying to delay it. Some of the measures the PPP Civic put forward and recommended are one, to expand the number of stations. So right now we have 12 stations counting ballots, recounting ballot boxes. We'd like to see that extended. We didn't give a figure to say exactly how much it should be extended by. The more the better, because that simply means we'll be able to count more per day. Of course, we have COVID as a consideration, and the party being the kind of caring party it is, we wouldn't want to put anybody in harm's way, but we believe firmly that there can be several extensions and several more stations put up without putting anyone in harm's way. One of the other recommendations was that we put a quota system in place so that each counting station has to finish X number per day. So if you want to delay, so there's a particular counting station, I believe it's counting station 8, that I see complaints keep coming out of that station. They'd finish like one box. Region 4 would finish 4 boxes in one day. Whereas Region 5 would finish 18 boxes in one day. The delay seems to be around Region 4. So one of the recommendations is to make every station must finish X number of boxes per day. Another recommendation is that perhaps we could extend the hours that we work. So instead of stopping at 7 o'clock, we may be able to go later. We may be able to do a double shift. Several recommendations to attempt to finish this process earlier. The party also, and I was very pleased to hear, because I've been critical of Justice Claudette Singh, Justice retired Claudette Singh, because I believe she too could have ended this a lot earlier, but water under the bridge, we are where we are. And I understand she has said publicly that she would like to see 100 boxes done per day. Now, if we're to get 100 boxes done per day, it cannot be in the present construct, either number of stations or working hours. There would have to be changes made. And I believe she's going to go back with her commissioners and try to give effect to her desire, to have her desire realized, which is to see 100 boxes per day. So in doing that, she's going to be considering the recommendations made by the People's Progressive Party Civic. And so I'd like to see that this period end with all the boxes being counted. The PPP also said that they would not object to extending the counting by 7 days, a short period, to give effect to the intention to finish everything. But it can't be the way it's happening right now. There needs to be changes. I think this is day 14, and 14 days in, we have seen enough, and we have experienced it enough, and we've worked the system enough to understand where the kinks are and what needs to be done to be able to do 100 boxes per day. So that's the effort now going forward.
Okay, Peter, before you go, I want to give you guys now your closing comments. I think we've already gone over our time. Maybe we have a minute or so. Peter, your closing comments, bearing in mind that there is still time. There is still time for us to have the Carter Center here to observe even the remainder of the process. This continues to be an issue that Mr. Granger and others are turning their backs on. As a matter of fact, Mr. Granger basically said that it's his position is not to have them here and just a CARICOM team. So your closing comments, we have just about a minute, 2 minutes more. So you and Priya, your closing comments.
Yeah, so definitely Mr. Granger should not be dictating which observer groups he's comfortable with or not. It's not his decision, and he needs to get over that. There's a flight coming in from the United States of America on the 22nd of May, or this Friday. We hope that the Carter Center will be approved to come in on that flight. It is coming in to take the Americans out. Finally, the government did approve that. What Mr. Granger has realized, it's not his choice. The electoral process allows the observer groups to be here. The Guyanese population wants that to happen to ensure that our will of the people is demonstrated in the recount process. And I want to bring back in the fact that Dr. Irfan Ali, the newly elected president of Guyana, based on all the numbers, all the SOPs, all the recounts that are coming in, is ready to take leadership. Guyana needs leadership very quickly. We've got a health crisis. We've got an economic crisis. The PPP has a track record of economic success, some of the highest growth rate in the region. He has put together a plan. He has not been sitting around over the last 3-4 months after, March 2nd, to say that he's waiting for the recount to finish. He's put together an economic plan. He has tied it to our manifesto. He has looked at some of the new things that we've got to put in place, inclusive governance, bringing in our stakeholders, getting the COVID-19 situation to play in order to benefit our citizens, the economic recovery plans to put in place. So he is ready to take the leadership of our nation. We want the recount to be completed as quickly as possible. And the people of Guyana look forward for economic success. We've got a great 5 years ahead of us. We've got to rebuild our economy. He's put a great team together. The candidates is diversified. He talks about inclusive governance. He talks about an equal opportunity president. And every Guyanese have something to look forward to. With the PPP success in economics, the PPP success in managing our economy and running our country, that is what we've got to look forward to, is Dr. Irfan Ali, duly elected president, being sworn in as soon as this recount is finished, and every Guyanese want to get on with their lives across the board. APNU supporters, PPP supporters, all the other political parties. And what we have seen that has come together during this process is a common goal and a fight for democracy. We have seen political parties that fought the PPP, that has fought, against certain things again. One common ground they've come together on is democracy is the most important factor. And if the will of the people says the PPP should be in power and they should run the next economics and development plan, then the will of the people needs to be respected. And that's what we ask for.
Priya.
That is what we demand. Eddie, I think it's important that each person watching, I'm seeing your live persons are watching, and I'm very encouraged by not only our local supporters and persons who are interested in the process looking on, but also the people in the diaspora who have stood with us during this time and have said to us very clearly through their words and actions that Guyana is not alone. All our international partners and peers, countries, the CARICOM, the European Union countries, the ABC countries, the Commonwealth countries, they've all said to us that we're not going to leave you alone. People of Guyana, we will stand with you. We will hold your hands and we will ensure that you live in a democratic state where your rights to choose your government are respected. And while we rely heavily on the assistance of our friends around the world, we ourselves have a duty here. And the PPP is not going anywhere. The PPP has shown you very clearly that in government or out of government, we will stand with the people of this country and always promote their well-being and their rights and so on. But I'm saying each person, everybody, from the lady who's selling in the market, to the lady who is helping a maid in a house, to the bus driver, to the coconut seller on the street, to the rice farmer, to the sugar worker, to the blogger on Facebook, to the young person watching on. You have a duty. And I'm saying your duty is to this country and to yourself and your family to make sure democracy, these basic tenets of democracy, that you can vote and your vote is counted, to make sure you preserve that. I'm not even saying you have to support the PPP. I believe we have to earn your support, and we will work very hard to earn that support. But I'm saying at this point, Guyana deserves your support, and you owe her that support. And so everybody could play a part in this time. Whether you're a social media person or a chatter on the telephone or a person discussing, not many people are going to work, but in your workplace, in the marketplace, anywhere you go, stand up for the upholding of democracy, stand up for making sure all the votes count and whoever wins gets to assume office. And coming hand in hand with that is also resisting people who will be bullies, people who are coming to you in the face of the AP and UAF. Some of them wearing suits and ties and a kerchief in their pocket and gloves and hats and a fancy dress. You have to resist them, because what they really are thieves, dressed up thieves, trying to steal rights from the people of this country, trying to steal votes from the people of this country, just so that a very small number of them who will make up the cabinet could benefit and fill their pockets. So the supporters of the AP and UAFC, they're punishing the same way supporters of the PPP are punishing. Supporters, people who went out and faithfully gave the AP and UAFC their vote on March 2nd, can't pay their rent right now, can't put meals on their children, meals on the table for their children to eat, cannot access internet so that their children could learn even and straight with the private school children. We owe ourselves and our country the duty to fight down and face down any kind of effort that is aimed at taking away our rights and taking away our ability to hold political parties in office accountable by allowing us to vote them in or out of office. That's the power that people have. You can use your vote to put people in, and when they don't serve you, you could use your vote to take them out. And we must never, must ever take that away from us. People died in this country to make sure our generation, me and you, we could go and cast our vote and have it counted. People died, and we must stand up at this point and make sure nobody takes that away from us. Not the old fossils, the Grangers and the Valdas and so on, and not the young people who are following them either. So each person here can play a part. And I ask that people resolve tonight that going forward, we're not going to watch on to see what the person does alone. We're joining them in this fight.
Thank you very much, Priya. Peter, thanks very much for joining me this evening. And of course, to our viewers, we want to thank you very much for joining us. We're going to be back here tomorrow evening. Michael Gordon is going to be your host to take you through the 8 o'clock hour with our nightly recount update. Until then, we want to say thanks for being part of the program. Priya, Peter, thanks again.
Night, Eddie.
Bye.